Hello, it's David Allen and you are watching Sporting Icons.
Alright, so Frank Warren, he was asked about Joe Joyce, what's happening with Joe Joyce. And it's a big question for a lot of people, a lot of boxing fans as well, because obviously we know the landscape, where Joe Joyce, he defeated Daniel Dubois. And of course that was Joe Joyce's last fight. Daniel Dubois, he suffered an orbital bone break, and since then, Daniel Dubois has healed and already had a fight, and is now WBA interim world heavyweight champion, where he's set to become the mandatory challenger for either A, Trevor Bryan, which for me, I don't think is really going to happen, because Trevor Bryan, he's got an obligation with Manuel Charr. So for me, I think that WBA will elevate Daniel Dubois to become Anthony Joshua's mandatory. Anyway, that's the Daniel Dubois situation. So a lot of people are asking, well, what's happening with Joe Joyce? Because he should be the one in that position, as he just defeated Daniel Dubois. Dubois came back, took on Bogdan Dinu of all people, and now he's up there in a lofty position. What's happened with Joe Joyce? Because only a few weeks ago, Joe Joyce was all set to take on Alexander Usyk for the WBO interim world heavyweight championship. Meaning that the winner become interim, which means that when Fury and Joshua had their first fight, the winner of that fight would then be stripped of the WBO and awarded to the winner of Usyk and Joyce. Of course, I think many of us feel that the whole Team Fury pretty much messed around the entire boxing world, okay? But pretty much conned us, okay? But no matter how you look at it, the situation now is that Fury is now going to go fight Deontay Wilder for a third time. Joshua is now going to go fight Usyk. So where does this leave Joe Joyce? Now, Frank Warren, he says that Joe Joyce will become mandatory for the WBO, and he will fight the winner of Fury and Joshua. Now, Frank Warren, he was a guy, I don't know whether it's actually him who said it, but he said something along the lines of, is it that you keep boxers in the dark, you treat them like mushrooms and just feed them shit? Is this Frank Warren? Okay, he said something very, very similar along those lines. And I think that he kind of forgets that this is not the 1980s or the 1990s or even the early 2000s anymore. We're now in an era where we have social media, where we have internet, where we, the boxing fans, have access to everything that we need to know. We have access to all the sanctioning bodies' websites to go see the rules and regulations. Of course, many of us read that quite regularly. The ratings and all kinds of things. So we know the landscape, and I think Frank Warren forgets all of that. So to say that Joe Joyce will become the mandatory for the WBO, firstly, he won't, because currently Alexander Usyk is the mandatory. So of course, once he fights Joshua, and let's just presume that Anthony Joshua defeats Alexander Usyk, let's just presume that Tyson Fury defeats Deontay Wilder. So the WBO mandatory situation currently held by Alexander Usyk will have only just been fulfilled. Now, because it's a unification, because it's unified belts, as in Anthony Joshua, he's got more than one belt, if him and Fury fight, and it is going to be for Undisputed at the end of the year, of course they're going to have another fight after that, where the winner is then going to have a whole backlog of mandatories. But as the WBO was the last mandatory obligation to be fulfilled, they will go to the back of the queue. In other words, Joe Joyce, he can become mandatory. I don't think he will be. I think that he's going to have to fight an eliminator. The next in line will be Joseph Parker. So Joe Joyce versus Joseph Parker currently. Okay? But, okay, let's just say Joe Joyce does become mandatory. He's going to go to the back of the queue. Okay? Because the WBO was the last mandatory position, Alexander Usyk, to be completed. Next in line will be a toss between the WBA and the WBC. One of them two is going to be next. Whichever one, does it really matter? Not really, because then the other one will follow. Then it will go back round to the IBF and then the WBO. So you're talking from now, you're probably talking about 18 months before Fury and Joshua complete their second fight. So therefore, Joe Joyce is probably going to be waiting about 2 years after that. So Joe Joyce is going to have between 3 and 4 years to wait for his world title shot. Unless, of course, the winner just vacates all the belts, then of course Joe Joyce is in prime position to get it much earlier. But Frank Warren, to say that Joe Joyce will become the mandatory and will fight the winner is complete hogwash. Joe Joyce will not be fighting the winner. Will not, I repeat, will not be fighting the winner. Most likely what will happen is, if Joshua gets past Usyk, if Fury gets past Wilder, and if Fury and Joshua do fight for Undisputed, 2 fights back to back, it's more likely that the WBC will be up next. Currently, Dillian White WBC interim world heavyweight champion. He will be the one first to get a crack at the winner. Then it will be the WBA. Could well be Daniel Dubois. Could be. I'm not saying will be, I'm saying could be. Then it's going to be the IBF, which will be Filip Hrgović versus whomever it may be. Most likely Filip Hrgović, okay? Then you're looking at Joe Joyce. So Joe Joyce is a long, long way away. And if Joe Joyce believes this by Frank Warren, if Sam Jones, his manager, believes this by Frank Warren, then I don't know what to tell him. I don't know what to tell him. For me, it's complete hogwash. Because as I said before, Frank Warren forgets that we are in an era where we know the landscape. We know how things work now. Back in the day, we didn't know. If we wanted any kind of information, we had to buy the boxing magazines or look on the back of the newspapers like the News of the World or my dad's favourite one, the Sport, the Daily Sport. Bit of a grot magazine, really. But these kind of papers, okay, we had to look on the back of those to try and find out any kind of information. Because ordinarily, it'd just be a case of a fight just gets made and it's almost like it's out of nowhere and we go, oh, okay, cool. Lennox Lewis is going to fight Frank Bruno. Because, I mean, that's what I remember as a kid. I remember Frank Bruno, obviously like the last part of his career. Mike Tyson's last part of his career. Lennox Lewis and that, of course. The last bits of Chris Eubank and Nigel Benn and things like that. So, of course, we didn't really know the politics because there was no social media. So fighters could be kept in the dark. Fans could be kept in the dark. We didn't know about the politics of boxing, really. We didn't know about it. But nowadays we do. We know everything. We know what is next. I think Frank Warren forgets that. Joe Joyce can become WBO mandatory whether he fights a final eliminator or he does not. But he will be last on the list to get a crack at the winner of Fury and Joshua if the winner, of course, does not vacate. Anyway, that's my thoughts. You'll drop me yours. Click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you all on the next video.